here.
Go. All right, here we go. So, unfortunately, this happened a little earlier than I wanted to happen this year. We had a nice run going for us, but we are back for Talking Packers here. I am Ben, and I'm joined by Papa Bacon, Aaron himself, to discuss the season that was and the offseason that is to come. So I guess before we go too much further here, Aaron, just quick impression. What's your overall feeling as we walk into this offseason?
Well, let me just say, okay, let's touch a little bit on the Niners game. And I won't get into some of the debates that we've had on our Dads of Bacon group chat at all. But TJ made a comment. I want to say it was Sunday. The loss was still raw, and he said, he was talking about when the Packers went in and beat up his Cowboys the week before, and he had said, hey, I was upset, but I gave. And then this was right after they were calling me salty about the Packers loss. And he said, I gave credit to the Packers and said, great win. And, admitted that we lost. Here's the difference. Okay. And I mean, I am over it at this point. I moved on or whatever, I was extremely happy with the way the season went. I mean, I thought they'd go 8-9, just like they did the year before. But to me, that would have been, a positive sign because, I wanted to see improvements from Jordan Love, which obviously we did. I mean, that there's no doubt about that. And anyone who thinks that Jordan Love still, has something to prove, you're a moron. I'm sorry, you star. But what bothered me about this game, and I know, like you said numerous times, and I've heard all throughout the media, we're playing with house money. I get it. We absolutely were. A lot of people didn't even pick us to come in second in the division, let alone make the playoffs and win a game. I mean, we were picked like third or even fourth in some circles. So what we did was very positive. But had the Packers gone in to Santa Clara and the Niners done to us what we did to the Cowboys the week before, I would have, my wife and I were watching the game, and if that had happened, I would have said, you know what? Yeah, this, hey, great season. Niners are obviously the better team. They're a great team. Congratulations, you guys won. My problem is I don't feel the Niners beat the Packers as much as the Packers beat themselves in this game. If they played a 7-game series, do I think the Niners would probably win at least 4 of those 7? Yes. But for that one day, the Packers were better than the Niners. And I don't know if it was maybe a little bit of rust or whatever, but, and I think Troy even said it in our group chat comparing the 2 games on Saturday, the Baltimore one first. Baltimore looked rusty against the Texans also, but then they came out and took it to them in the second half. And the Niners didn't do that. I mean, the Packers were leading up to the last 2 minutes of the damn game, so like I get the idea of playing with house money, but to me, in some ways, it would have been easier to swallow had we just gotten our butts kicked than we lost the way we did. And that was the problem that I had. It was like, we should be in Detroit right now. We should be practicing to get ready to play Detroit for a rematch, a divisional rematch and everything. So, but overall, yes, great season. Definitely an improvement from the 3-6 start. And I think there's a lot of things that Packer fans can look forward to in the next year and maybe even the next 3, 4, 5 years to come.
So this actually segues very nicely to my next comment. Actually, an argument against you a little bit here, and that's looking at how this thing all played out. And Troy, get out of here. So what I'm going to say is that
what a smart ass. Anyway, go on.
The other side of this, when I look at though, is the Packers played a game. They were that team that night, but the segue point here is Joe Barry also dug his own grave for us. So there's the piece here I look at is we had a spot where Joe Barry did what he did to us all season. He lost the football game. I mean, he had a game plan that worked for 45, 50 minutes, 55 minutes, and he bailed on it and watched the team lose because of his conservative dial it all back to the soft zone, let him drive down the field and pray to God that one of your pass rushers gets home and makes a huge play. That's what he banked on. And that's what cost him his job ultimately. So, I mean, it's for me, I look at my counterpoint here is that it's the Packers were there, they had their chances. The Niners executed when we didn't, though, and it comes down to me on 4 plays. That's the 2 interceptions that were, and the 2 that weren't.
Yeah.
If Nixon and Savage catch their interceptions, number 1, the Greenlaw pick never happens. Number 2, the score isn't even in a position to be a debate. So I think this is where that game was still, to me, it was still more logs in the fire of hope for next season, which is, it's, I hear you. It's frustrating because you feel like you were right there. But I guess the other part of me says, this also tells me we've got the building blocks to see the next 4 years be a very open window for us if we don't completely botch this thing.
Now, to your point though about Joe Barry, let me ask you this: if that last drive doesn't happen, and Joe Barry doesn't do Joe Barry things at the end of the game, do you think he has a job still, or do you?
Well, yeah, we're playing the Lions on Sunday then. But
okay. Touche. Yes, he's still has a job. Okay, in that way, but. Do you know what? Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, I wonder how close it really was, and obviously we'll never know because we're not Matt LaFleur. But were they going in like I think I did a post on Facebook in like I don't know week 15 or something, and I said I think it might have been right after the Packers held on to beat Carolina, and I had said I don't care if the Packers go undefeated the rest of the way and shut out every single opponent. Joe Barry better be gone, in 2000, for the 2025 season, or 2024 season. Sorry. Right. Do you think, how close do you think it was? Do you think there was a chance he was going to come back? Had they, like, let's say they lost to Detroit this week, but the defense played well and the defense didn't have their collapse against the Niners. Does he still have a job?
I really don't think he does. I think that ship has sailed. I think that script was already written. The data before this was so substantial. And I put back up here again. Was he a dead duck either way? Great question. That's kind of you're asking here too. I think he was. I think he kind of already wrote that page for him. Sure. It was just a matter of, I know we have valued seeing it through best we can. McCarthy, the exception of an in-season firing, but it's again, another your point here, but he had plenty of time to prove himself and just didn't. It's that spot of he's good for keeping a game close to a point, but that close game is also one he loses because he can't tighten up when it matters, and he just gets too conservative for his own good. But even going back through, just kind of to recap our season here a little bit, looking at the losses, the ones that you can't help but feel like they just got away, right? The Broncos, the Raiders, the Falcons game,
Giants,
the Giants, the Steelers, even the first Vikings game, stuff like that. You're just like, man, this was very close to being a historical season in terms of, it already was based on what happened at the end of the season. Yeah. But what you had for a chance of what we could have done with that. But that's the difference. And I think we see these young teams learning how to win football games.
Yeah.
How does this translate next year with that harder schedule with these different teams we're playing? I think the cool graphic that we saw is part of that, though, too. I'm all over the place here, but I think the cool part of that was seeing a different receiver lead the team in receiving yards every single month of the season made that much cooler to me, even though you're dealing with all these, because every month had a bad loss somewhere in it. The more I look through it, Carolina was almost a bad loss. The Tampa loss sucked. I mean, there's just weird pieces all over the place. They kind of it popped up and down. So this is where I think that as I look through the full season, I still see this as, yes, it was house money in the playoffs. It was a win for a season. We know, number one, Matt LaFleur, yes, is a good head coach.
Yep.
Brian Gutekunst is not a terrible GM. He can draft some decent players and give us a chance to build a young team.
Yep.
Jordan Love is our quarterback. So right now, those three pieces you have in place with some other pieces that we'll talk about here in a little bit. And that's the core of how you figure out if if your window's open to try and get a championship, the Packers window's definitely open. I mean, unless I'm missing something, that's what I saw from the season.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, this is the first time that I feel like there aren't a whole lot. I mean, I suppose the kicker might be a question going into the offseason, and obviously your defense coordinator who they're going to bring in. But this is the first time in a long time that we haven't necessarily. I mean, first of all, the quarterback question isn't a question at all, because we don't, he's there. So, hey, we finally can go into the first offseason in like 5 years where we're not having to worry about what's going to go on with our quarterback. I agree. I had some questions with Matt LaFleur when they were 3-6. I'm like, God, what's going on? And then, it just started clicking. So, I still think there are times that just his decision making needs to be worked on a little bit. And I know hindsight's 20/20, but like, do you, against the Niners, do you go for it on 4th and 1 early in the game, or do you take the points? Do you,
right.
Just some of those things.
Big ball Dan Detroit says go for it. So who knows?
Well, yeah. Yeah. I guess to me, like, I'll be honest with you, I'm being kind of hypocritical here, but when they went for it, when they ran up to the line real quick and we're going to snap it right away to try to catch the defense off guard, I was like, I like that. I think I even said to my wife, I like this decision. I think it's a good decision. And then they fell short. And I'm like, you should have gone for the points.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, it turns out, it would have been better to go for the points. But again, all that stuff is pointless to even discuss if you have. I think the biggest question is the defense going into the offseason. And I mean, obviously some O-line issues too, that they might have to look at. But the defense is the biggest question, and while I do believe that getting rid of Joe Barry was the right thing to do, I'm glad they did. I wish they had done it a year earlier. But I will say there are players on that defense that you look at and go, okay, they got to start making plays. I mean, Darnell Savage is a perfect example. The pick six in the Dallas game was awesome. You could have had another pick six, second game in a row against San Fran. And either, I don't know if he just was thinking about taking off and running before he actually caught the ball or what exactly happened, but that couldn't have hit him in a better spot.
Yeah.
But he's one that I think I want to say it was like maybe 2 or 3 seasons ago. He had like 4 or 5 picks, but then in that same season, he had, I think, 4 picks that he dropped. So it's like, dude, you got to start making you got to catch the ball. That's your job, is either knock it down or catch it. And, so he's one that I think will be interesting one to watch how he comes back if
he comes back though.
If he comes back in 2024.
We're talking here the secondary. Yeah. We have Corey Ballantyne, Keyshawn Nixon, Darnell Savage, Jonathan Owens, and Rudy Ford, all unrestricted free agents going to this offseason. For those who are returning, we have Anthony Johnson Jr., Zane Anderson, Benny Sapp III, Tyler Coyle, Jair Alexander, Eric Stokes, Carrington Valentine, Zion Gilbert, and Anthony Johnson. This is their returning names in our secondary. So I'll say from my standpoint, Keyshawn Nixon's probably one of our top 3 priorities this offseason in terms of bringing back the team.
Yep.
He played a good, slot corner for us. But his ability for us on special teams, especially keep Jaden Reed out of there and those guys, the receivers that are becoming more valuable. Nixon, to me, is dynamic. We saw it, even though we fumbled on the play, that kick return was a huge play for us in terms of getting momentum going back in our direction, even though it didn't work out ultimately for us in terms of the game. Nixon's a dynamic player. You don't just pass on that. So I think that's a guy that I would look at. For me, out of those 5, I would go Nixon, probably Savage, and Owens, Ballantyne, Ford in that order for my priorities to resign.
Sure.
So Savage, I still like. I know you kind of knock on a little bit, and I get it. But what I like with Savage, he's usually getting around the ball. If you see a play happening, he's getting to wherever the ball is, and he is at least in a position to make those interceptions. If he's not catching them, it's frustrating, yes, but he's there. And we've had enough bad safety play in Green Bay And I mean, we can go through those memories, right?
Oh, sure.
Fail Mary is one that still rings my mind, even though it was an interception. But the point being, we've had bad safety memories. I would love to see Darnell Savage continue. Yeah, thanks. So, I mean, superstition reigns supreme as I'm being blamed for a loss now. But anyway, that being said, Jonathan Owens I like, because I kind of mentioned in the show last week, he's that guy that you kind of see him going after those, like the peanut punch and the strips that Charles Woodson used to go for. Yeah, we don't. No one else on our defense seems to go for him a lot. I thought he was a nice spark as he got into the rotation a little more.
Mm-hmm.
So
he came on. I feel like he did come on, as the season went on. So,
but yeah, I think overall safety, regardless if they sign these guys or not, safety is a major hole for us right now. Whether it's these guys or free agents or rookies, we're going to see some things happen in that safety position as we get into next year.
No.
Offensive side of the ball, everyone has been talking about all season. AJ Dillon's a free agent. The names that I'm more concerned about are Yash Nijman and John Runyon are going to be free agents. And then the other ones we have there are Josiah DeGuara and Tyler Davis. So, Dillon had a nice little stretch there.
Yeah.
But let's not forget how we were all feeling outside of those, like we'll call it 4 games. AJ Dillon's a great person. He's a great advocate for Door County.
Yep.
As a guy, I think the world of AJ Dillon. But that guy was tripped by more yard monsters than I've seen any running back his size ever tripped by. The guy it's the lack of balance, wherever it is. A guy who's his size with his quads we have to talk about should not be falling on first contact or to nothing like he does so often. So unless he's coming back on the cheap, I'm taking that money and I'm looking at John Runyon and Yash Nijman and saying, hey, you guys are important to what we're doing here in this O-line. Yeah. And I want you guys to consider coming back.
Yeah, you can always find running backs for whatever reason in the draft. I mean, I love AJ Dillon too. I agree with you. I do think he's the kind of guy that is, we wouldn't be talking about his struggles in the beginning of the year if Aaron Jones would have been able to stay healthy.
Right.
Let's be honest. But it is nice to have a backup running back who you can count on if that first guy does go down, or just to count on to give the guy a breather. I like Emmanuel Wilson. I love the kid. I love his, I remember hearing his story in the preseason and everything. Great story. Right. But when he would give Aaron Jones a breather in the Niners game, it was like, okay, either they know we're going to pass it, or they're not going to have to really worry about him you weren't worried about him breaking anything.
Yeah.
Dillon is kind of the same, but there are times, especially near the end of the year, especially if it's crummier weather, like rainy or snowy or whatever, where I feel like AJ Dillon's skill set comes into play more. He reminds me of almost a bigger, stronger Edgar Bennett, when Bennett was always like they called him, he was considered a mutter, and hey, you want to, if it's rainy, Edgar Bennett will get you yardage, he'll be productive and all that kind of stuff. I kind of feel like AJ Dillon is that guy at the end of the season and at the end of games. But yeah, I agree. Unless what was that?
It's the retro fullback who carries, the Mike Allstott,
the
William Hendersons, those guys who could actually take the ball and for 5-6 carries a game and go get some yards for you.
Yeah, and I feel like and I heard I can't remember if it was LaFleur that was talking about him or who it was that was saying he works. One of his problems, and it's also his strength, is that he works so much during the off season on his legs, on his quads, on his strength, but then it takes him a while to get into football shape once the season starts. So that's why which made sense, because I felt like over the since he's been on the team, he has stronger end of the year performances than he does at the beginning of the year. And that kind of happened with this year, where like a few of the games, like you said, maybe the 4 or 5 game stretch that he actually did well before he got, the broken thumb and then the stinger. He was doing well, and it was at the end of the year. So But I agree. I love the guy. Door County loves the guy, but unless you're getting him on a really good deal, and maybe you will, depending on what his health issue is. I mean, I don't really know what exactly. I didn't think Stingers lasted that long, but
yeah. Once you start saying neck, it always scares me. You never know what it's going to bring.
Well, exactly. So,
but yeah, looking at the running back room, it's Aaron Jones, Emmanuel Wilson, and Ellis Merriweather is our running back room right now. So what
about Patrick Taylor? Is Taylor not, or is he a free agent?
Currently, he's an unrestricted free agent. Looks like as well.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I'd be in favor. If you find a running back in the 3rd round or something like that, go grab him. Or whatever. Not.
Well, Braylon Allen is essentially that new AJ Dillon, right? Same build, but a little more explosion. Wisconsin guy.
I wouldn't mind them taking a Wisconsin guy, which means they're not going to.
Right. He'll probably be a Viking. That's how it usually goes for us. The Vikings take Badgers, and we're sitting there going like, come on.
Yeah.
That are the Bears. The Bears and the Vikings always get our Badgers. Yeah. But that being said, going through a little bit more of it, Bakhtiari is kind of the name we're not mentioning yet, but Bakhtiari is one I think we're all assuming will be gone. Just get that money, that relief from the cap as fast as we can. The guy can barely walk. Like, you wish him well, but the guy's done.
Yeah, I love the guy too. I agree. I mean, you wish him well, but it is a business, and they do have the salary cap, so it's like there's no point in keeping this guy if he can't play. Unfortunately, so.
It's where you wish you could make an injury settlement. This would be the best case scenario for the Packers, but there's no reason for Bakhtiari to take it. But that leaves you with Elton Jenkins, Josh Myers, Sean Ryan, Zach Tom, Rasheed Walker, Royce Freeman, Caleb Jones, Luke Tenuta, and Kadeem Telford for our remaining on the roster linemen. So again, you got some pieces here that have done well on the stretch. Zach Tom was one of the best right tackles on the stretch in the league. Rasheed Walker had a really great showing in the playoffs, especially at left tackle. Got a lot better as the season progressed. Elton Jenkins has a track record at left guard. We're in good shape there. Sean Ryan rotating with running was really nice at right guard. Mm-hmm. So there's pieces I like here. I think that there's the spot I want to see is continue to draft that interior lineman pieces to rotate in with Ryan, maybe get another center or replacement center. I think Myers is a potential spot we can upgrade at. We'll see. But, the O-line is definitely I think it was hated on a lot, but actually played very well, especially given the lack of notoriety across that line. With pointing out Rasheed Walker, a 7th-round pick out of Penn State, playing a very good left tackle for us.
Yeah, I agree, and I thought they got better. I mean, definitely better as the year went on. I remember early in the year they had a lot of penalties and things like that, and but I really didn't feel like in that run there where they went 8-2 in their last 10 games or 7-3, whatever it was.
Yeah.
I mean, Jordan wasn't getting touched a whole lot, and you had some holes opening up there for Aaron Jones, especially in the playoffs. So I again, the offense does not bother me at all. The offense, like when you asked, right away in the show how this team will do, like, for next season with the harder schedule, I'm not worried about this offense at all. It's the defense, but
I think the interesting part of the offense, you look at off-season additions, you got to watch the running back room, you got to watch the O-line. But tight end, I feel good. Musgrave and Tucker Kraft both prove themselves as being valuable pieces of what we're doing.
And Sims, I thought Sims did a good job too. Yeah.
So, I mean, we're in a good spot in that room right now. You might still draft one late just to kind of keep that depth and keep that rotation going there a little bit. Sure. But you got to feel decent there. And DeGuera's never been able to stay healthy for us. Again, decent enough guy, it seems like that H-back tight end kind of role they like to use, that hybrid fullback tight end. We'll see if we get there, but I think that you could see some creativity with a Tucker Kraft or Ben Sims in that kind of role. Would not surprise me. But anyway, that being said, going back to the defense, a little deeper dive here, I want to hit the D-line. Heard a lot of split opinions on Devontae Wyatt and how he played this year. See, I thought he progressed. In my opinion, watching him,
I did too.
Again, some down moments, but I think he's a player that, to me, is on the right track for a big man to have a really big year next year.
Sure.
But that's it. Looking at Kenny Clark, looking at some of our other big, Mike Daniels, some of these other D linemen we've had come through our system, I feel like he's on that right track for where he's at in his career to be a really big piece for us next year.
Yep.
What do you think? What do you see?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I have now. I don't know if you've heard a lot of criticism about Wyatt. I have not, but I heard his name a lot more this year than I heard last year. I mean,
Right.
that's for sure. And he was this is his second year, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and he had some injury issues, if I'm not mistaken, last year. So, I mean, as long as he's on the field, that's that's progress to be from last year. But no, I was very pleased with the performance. Like you said, I mean, he had some issues where, some down games or games that he really didn't do a whole heck of a lot. But I thought for the most part, I was happy with his performance. And the D line is one of those where you do wonder how big of an impact it's going to be with a new defensive coordinator. Like, I mean, if there's more, is there more, are going to be more pressure coming, more help from the linebackers that's going to help them out, that kind of thing? Because I will say this, Rashad Gary didn't do a whole lot, in the last, I don't know what, 7 weeks, something like that, in terms of numbers. I mean, his stat, he didn't have the sack numbers that he did earlier in the year. But then you watch the game against, for example, the Cowboys. I mean, a lot of plays they had a tight end chipping him, and then after he finally got away from that guy, he's being met by two other offensive linemen. I mean, what do you expect the guy to do? He's not Reggie White.
Yeah.
I love Gary, and I love the progress he's making, and I think he'll continue to get better. But he's not Reggie White right now. He can't just pound through two guys in a row with his with
No,
the big,
but
the big
point,
club.
though, I think you see what we've saw the rest of this defense though. You got guys like Van Ness though, and like Barre, Carl Brooks,
Yep.
who were getting sacks, even though he was Preston Smith. These guys who are taking advantage of Rashawn Gary taking 2 and 3 blockers meant these other guys were able to get free. So, I mean, the part I really like about this was, I mean, going back to I talked about earlier in the show is, we saw some draft picks really make a difference quick. Carl Brooks had a lot of sacks in college, but hey, he's a MAC player. Is that going to translate? It translated. Carl Brooks came to play, and it showed quick. The guy has a nose for making plays on the ball. So it's it's definitely encouraging to me to see that Kenny Clark, the pressure's finally off him, but he still played well with what he had as a group. TJ Slayton, I think, came along a nice way as far as TJ Slayton. My buddy's a big Florida honk, and he's like, hey, how's he doing? I'm like, man, he's coming to his own as a really nice role player for us. Like, he's like that ideal mid-round D lineman you want, who like Slayton's on the field, like, we're good. It's not going to be. It's not Santana Dotson. Like, that was one of my favorite D tackles of all time that we had. But hey, we're in a good spot.
Sure.
Anyway, he reminds me of Mike Pennell for some reason. Like, I don't know why. Just like there's someone connects with me that way. But anyway, that being said, going back to where we're at, Devondre Campbell, Quay Walker, Isaiah McDuffie at inside linebacker. So, the funny part is people want to complain about how much draft capital has been put into the defensive side of the football. But as I look at our team, I see a lot of needs for us to go back to the defense here.
Yeah, I know.
Well, reload this defense.
That's what I was kind of laughing about, to myself as we're getting ready for the show, and I'm thinking about, what I think needs the most help in the offseason. And I'm thinking to myself, God, we exactly that same thing. We've done so much over the years, especially in the first couple rounds with defense. I think that it would be a good idea to go back to that, because it's not like I know for years we were sitting there crying for the Gutekunst or whoever the GM was at the time to get Aaron some help at wide receiver. Now it's like we're fine at wide receiver. I mean, like you said, if you want to take some like later in the draft for some depth, fine. They don't need unless you somehow would get the number 1 pick and you want to draft Marvin Harrison Jr., fine. But otherwise, they don't need a wide receiver for the first couple rounds if they don't have to. And I think you focus on defense, because I mean, at least for the next few years while they're all on rookie contracts, that offense is fine with the exception of, again, of just maybe adding a little bit of depth. So, and they've done so well, and maybe, I don't know, I'm sure a little bit of it's luck, but they've hit on some of the on some guys in later rounds with wide receivers and things like that I really think you focus at least early in the draft on defense, unless there's a good offensive lineman that you can't pass up, like you had said, getting a little more help there. But
so, Troy, good question on how are we team coverage or team pass rush? Yeah, I don't know how to answer that right now, honestly. So I don't know.
I'd like to see a little more pass rush. I mean, I'd like to see a little more blitzing, a little, that's the thing. Okay, let's going back to the Niner game, since Troy brought that up. That's
Yeah.
it, because we talk about how Joe buried and it did the whole, bend but don't break, except this time it was bend and break.
Yep.
I was listening to Drew and KB, guys out of Milwaukee, on Monday, and they always have Aaron Nagler from Cheesehead TV on, and his comment was, and I totally agree with it, was, if you watched the defense in the fourth quarter, especially at last drive, they looked absolutely gassed. They couldn't get any pressure. And Joe Barry was content to just drop back and do his, hey, we don't want to give up anything big. The problem with that, first of all, that would have been a great time to change it up a little bit and maybe throw something at Brock Purdy that he hadn't seen yet, which was a blitz or like some pressure. If they beat you deep on that, if Purdy is the elite quarterback that Brandon thinks he is, and he sees it and goes deep and you get beat, at least then maybe you still have 4 to 5 minutes on the board that you can drive down. Like I would have at that point, now obviously you never want to look at it and go, oh man, I think we're going to give up a touchdown here. But I'll be, as a fan, I'm watching it going, I have zero confidence that this defense.
We knew it was going to happen.
Yeah,
we all did.
So to me, it's like, give up something deep, or maybe you actually get to Brock Purdy. You cause a fumble, you cause him to throw an air pass, and this time you actually hold on to the interception, and then it's totally, then you can, we're talking about the Detroit Lions in the NFC Championship game right now. So, like, to me, I would love to see more blitzing, as long as you're not just like, to me, I feel like even when Joe Barry called blitzes, it was a lot of times that it was just like you're sending guys to send them, and they'd get easily picked up and by the offense, and it's like, okay, well, I feel like he just did it for the sake of showing the fans that, yeah, I see we can blitz sometimes or whatever. I don't know. I maybe that doesn't make any sense, but it just, there are some defensive coordinators that can draw up schemes that just totally flummox the offense. And then there's Joe Barry, who draws up schemes that it's just like, you're like, well, why are you doing that? I don't understand what you're doing. And when you play the bend but don't break, hey, we're gonna drop back against a offensive genius like Kyle Shanahan, he's gonna look at that clock and go, oh wait, I got 6 minutes. We need a touchdown, and you're going to give us 5 yards every play. Yeah, we'll take that. And they just go down, and the next thing you know, they're scoring a touchdown, and you've got a minute and a half left with 2 timeouts that you're hoping Jordan Love can come through on. And just, that's the frustrating part. If I'm going to give up a touchdown, give up a big play, and then that way you have plenty of time, and you say, okay, we at least need a field goal, so let's at least get into field goal range, and if we can get a touchdown, great. And then
in that situation, I completely agree. Again, different situations are different, right?
Yeah.
But so going to Troy's question here and point here, just wondering where you guys stand, which is more important, team coverage or team pass rush. So I'm going back to this and saying coverage is more important at the end of the day, because I've seen too much where it's coverage does help your pass rush. Yes, pass rush helps your coverage. They both do go hand. I get that, but if there's just poor coverage, there's not even the best pass rush in the world can overcome that, because it's just, I mean, you need to have somebody there. And the hardest part for us is we have Jair Alexander, who's consistently been great as one of the best cover corners in the league. playing the stupid, soft zone defense, and you're just wasting this cover corner in this scheme. So hopefully we can get it someone who will actually utilize the skill sets of the players he's given and not just be stubborn in the coach's own philosophy that he refuses to use what he's given. But we'll see what we get there. So all that said, team awards, as far as you're concerned, who would you go team MVP this season?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and this is I'm kind of thinking the same thing as I've said all year with the 49ers, and I don't mean to bring it up, but it's very similar to me. Obviously, the obvious choice would be Jordan Love, but I do feel like if Aaron Jones hadn't come back when he did, and it certainly helped that he missed like almost half the year, and so he was definitely, and Matt LaFleur even commented, I think after the Dallas game or before the Dallas game, about how it definitely he's on fresh legs right now compared to a lot of the running backs who have played the whole season. So that didn't hurt in the end. But he brings a different dynamic to this team, and I felt going into the Niner game that if the Packers were going to pull off that upset, and again, they almost did, he had to have over 100 yards, whether it was 100 yards rushing or 100 total yards with receiving too. I didn't care, but he had to get that kind of production. And of course he did. I think he ran, that was the 5th straight game he's run for over 100 yards, which is disappointing that we wasted that great performance on that. I'd have to say Aaron Jones. I think he's the most, if you take him away, and that's what the MVP to me is, not about the best numbers. It's about who's the guy, the one guy that if you take him away, you're not going to the playoffs, or you're not. And I think it's Aaron Jones to me.
I agree with you. I think it showed on the stretch, right? Mm-hmm. There's not that same. We couldn't replace him. I agree. Aaron Jones is our MVP. I was trying to think of a way to counter on that. I can't. I think that as far as when he was healthy, when he played this year, he was at a consistently high level that made the whole team better. And, I'll use the TJ Watt example. I keep going back to the Steelers. TJ Watt is the MVP of the Steelers because it shows when he plays, they're a better team. Yep. I think Aaron Jones is that for the Packers. Yeah. What would you say this year for Rookie of the Year? And we got quite the class to pick from.
Yeah. I would have to. There's a lot of guys that I was really excited to watch, obviously, but I would have to say probably Jaden Reed. I mean, that kid can be so. I feel like he is a young Deebo Samuel, in the making, and which I will be extremely happy if that's the kind of guy that he turns out to be. So that's my pick, Jaden Reed.
Yeah, how about you? I'm going to go Anders Carlson. I'm kidding. In all seriousness, it's hard to go against Jaden Reed. I am going to go against you here a little bit. I'm going to go with Dontavian Wicks, actually, in terms of, and the only reason is just for more discussion, honestly. But as far as his gameplay, like to me, Wicks brought that flavor of something different in that receiving group that we needed that little spark, and he seemed to bring that. Yeah. Also, speaking of our MVP, one of the best moments for me of kind of that iconic moment for this season that struck me is with Aaron Jones and Dontavian Wicks. And Wicks fumbled that ball in that Rams game. You get that Aaron Jones like picking his head up moment. Yeah, like that's to me is one of those. That's very iconic to me with this young Packers team that kind of plug these players in. And it's ironic picking my Rookie of the Year that way, but like looking at Wicks, he's in a lot of big moments. He turned himself around. He didn't let himself get beaten. Where I think that, and he kept performing better as the season went on. I think Wicks could, Jaden Reed's a hard one to argue against. I can make a hard case for Carl Brooks. I can make a really good case for Carrington Valentine. I mean, Valentine is a 7th round cornerback that literally got Rasul Douglas traded. He was playing so well. Yeah. I mean, so it's Tucker Kraft came out of nowhere to be a very legit tight end threat, both in fantasy football, which doesn't really matter, but it does. But also being that valuable like pass threat. Then Musgrave comes back and he's balling out. So all in all, this is a really, really, really good class for us. And even though some aren't going to stick, that's the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
I mean, Jaden Reed, I think, is probably the logical pick. I have my case for all those guys I can kind of go down, but I mean, what a class! This can go down as one of those really big classes for the Packers, and then we have the fifth most draft capital in the league this year again too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
With 5 picks in the first 2 days, so there's a lot we can do again this year. That's going to be a big deal. Yeah. And I know Troy's still thanking us for Sewell Douglas. So and Micah Hyde and we can go down the list there too.
Yeah, exactly.
What about defensive player of the year? Who would you go for on the team this year for defensive player of the year?
You know, why don't you start this time? I think I've done the last couple ones. Well, what's your pick?
I'm going Rashawn Gary.
Okay.
So Rashawn Gary, to me, he got the contract and he didn't let up. Yeah, he got schemed against more late in the season. The numbers didn't necessarily show him as much, but he said he was taking those blockers and making the other guys around him better. He kept a positive attitude. You could see the leadership, the way he carried himself. A lot of guys we've seen here before, guys get paid and they fall off. Rashawn didn't. He came out and he balled out all season. So Rashawn Gary, the numbers were there, and leadership was there. He's my defensive player of the year for the Packers this year.
Yeah, and honestly, he was the one I was going to pick too, but I was kind of, I wanted you to go first so I could give a little more time to think of like other guys. I'm like, you know what, I can't. Like you said, I mean, the numbers were there, even though the numbers themselves tailed off a little bit. But again, like you said earlier, that extra attention he got freed up. I mean, it's not like our sack numbers went down in those games that he or that he didn't get sacks. Other guys were getting them. So his presence there, I mean, that's what, to me, that's the sign of a guy who is either great or at least, getting closer and closer, better and better every week. Can he draw that attention that makes his teammates better? And that kind. And thankfully, I mean, we do have, we got guys like Van Ness, guys like Kenny Clark, and Carl Brooks, and some of those other guys that are good enough to take advantage of the attention that Rashawn Gary is getting. I think that was one of the things that I've heard all season, that Cleveland, that made Cleveland such a great defense, was that they finally got somebody opposite Myles Garrett when they got Zadarius Smith, and he was like, all of a sudden he made that difference. You need that. And I mean, Myles Garrett has been great for years now, but their defense has been, I think, average at best, because you need more than one guy. And
we got a pile.
I would say Rashawn Gary would be my MVP. I mean, there's a couple other guys that I look at that, to me, I mean, Devondre Campbell, I think, with the exception of getting burned a number of times against the Bucks, but that's not his fault that he had to try to guard Chris Godwin the entire time. But I mean, his absence on the defense when he was injured was obvious. A guy like Quay Walker, I mean, I think is an important, piece of that defense when he's, especially, it's noticeable when he's out. And I do think that JJ Inwari's injury was a lot more devastating to that defense than a lot of people would think, just because he's, I mean, he was 41% of the plays, I think, is what he usually played. So, he wasn't a starter or anything like that, but he, when you need to give guys rest, and you can have a guy like him come in, and, he made a number of big plays this year in his, fill-in roles. So, but yeah, Rashawn is my MVP too, or defensive MVP.
So next one to go with is defensive rookie of the year. And
okay. Defense. Okay.
This one's really hard. I'm going Carrington Valentine, just because of the role he was sent to and the way he carried himself with it. Carl Brooks is my honorable mention here. A hard time not going co-winners in this one, but Carrington Valentine, that dude reminds me of first-year Jair Alexander, the swagger he plays with.
Yeah.
The dude's got that sass about him, but he backs it up. The guy is playing ball. I watched him when he was at Kentucky. I liked him coming out of Kentucky. I liked him. I don't know what it was that made him drop on the boards, but the Packers got a steal in Carrington Valentine, and we've got a good one here. So I'm going him for Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with you too. I'm trying to think of. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunately the defense, there wasn't as many options as there was on offense, where you could look at like 5 or 6 guys on offense and go, yeah, all these guys could
Well, I'll tell you though, honestly, you got to look at Colby Wooden came along later in the season, but not to that level. But Lucas Van Ness played very well. Again, first round pick. You got to do a little more that call for me. Carl Brooks was phenomenal this year. I mean, the guy is way ahead of schedule for being that big man on a D line. Like, he is ahead of schedule, and he looks like an absolute stud pick. But Carrington Valentine, like I said, for again that, and I'm going to pick at you here a little bit. That's that Brock Purdy value. That 7th round pick you get, it carries a little bit extra value to people. When you get that extra chunk, it just means a little more.
Yeah.
So the last one I want to hit on, I guess, is going to be your most improved player of the year. And I'm going to start off here too. I'm going with Quay Walker. So Quay was good in his rookie year, but he had those mental mistakes that cost the team heavily. And you could see Quay thinking more this year. You could really see the man trying to think and trying to do better. Mm-hmm. And to a point where you can tell he's being coached, you can tell he's listening to the coaching. And the man is clearly trying, and he was very, I think so, even the audio, it picked him up with his speech, even to the referees, to other players, yes sir, no sir. He is trying so hard. The man is committed to it. I can respect that. And besides that, the gameplay, the guy is in there in every play. That dude flies. He's smaller than Urlacher was, don't be wrong, but he reminds me of Urlacher's speed, sideline to sideline. Again, not saying he's Urlacher. There's one Urlacher. I'm not arguing that. My comment is based literally on the quickness to sidelines and being involved in plays. But I like seeing that from Quay Walker this year. Big step forward. The mental errors went down. The being involved in plays stayed where they needed to be at. So Quay Walker's my most improved player this year.
Yeah, I would say for me, and I have no problem with that pick. I guess I would go with the guy we talked about a little bit earlier, in Devontae Wyatt. I feel like he's he stayed healthier, which is a start. And I just feel like he was a bigger part of that defensive line success than he was last year, for sure. But I also agree with Quay Walker, because there was so much talk. People wanted him, especially after that whole incident last year. Was it against Detroit? I think, at the very last game of the year, where he pushed the medical guy, and people were, "Oh, cut this guy, cut this bum." And it's just like, okay, come on, let's all calm down. He's a rookie, did something stupid. You could tell that when they showed him going into the locker room, and he was, I think, in tears and just upset. Whether no matter why he was crying, I think it was partially because he realized, he did something.
Hurt his team.
Yeah, and he hurt his team, and he realized that, man, I really screwed up. And this is one of those times where I think Matt LaFleur's his insistence on staying with guys, even when everyone else is telling him to, just move on from this guy. Amari Rodgers, he hung on too long. A couple other guys he has too, but Quay Walker is one of those guys that I'm excited for. As I don't think there are times that you struggle to find that leader on defense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's coming really well into that role. This year we didn't see, I don't recall seeing any kind of stupid plays where you're just like, Quay, what the hell are you thinking? Whereas last year, his rookie year, there were a few plays that you thought, not even including that one.
There's one moment that was not brilliant. Yeah. So, but all that being said, there's a lot of pieces here. Then one other thing I'll just go is kind of my own award I'm making up on the spot here, but I'm going to call it the Next Man Up Award. And that's just looking at a guy who filled a spot in that really, to me, could have been a falling point in the season for us. But Rasheed Walker, what he did at left tackle with a lot of criticism initially.
Yep.
But what he did in that spot, again, I'm going to love my 7th round picks here again. But Mark Couch was a 7th round pick. You know, we can go through all those pieces, but Rasheed Walker, the man just made himself some money this year. Like it or not, that dude just earned a contract. And so that's why I see this as we learned we have a quarterback, a GM, and a coach. We learned we've got a right and left tackle now too that we can play with, and that's huge. So I think during the season, I was saying I want the Packers to go tackle in the first round, and honestly, I've pulled back on that, and I'm saying, you know what, I'm probably looking more now, or depth position especially. I'm probably more safety. They said looking more defense. So we'll kind of see how that shakes out. But again, a lot of excitement here, especially now that we've got Joe Barry going on. I'm really excited, and we'll see what piece we can get in here, what that defense is going to look like. I'm assuming it'll stay towards that 3-4 scheme based on the personnel we have, but hopefully we can see a little more creativity in the pass rush game, and hopefully some actual man coverage to use Jair Alexander, because I hate to see us lose a guy like that in this defense.
Well, yeah, and I had heard today there were some rumors that they were probably going to move on from Jair, and I'm thinking I don't really understand why. Actually, I heard it from a guy that I work with who follows the team and that kind of thing. So I don't know where he heard it from, but I was just like, you just went through this whole thing, and LaFleur came out and was talking about how, hey, they had a heart-to-heart talk, and and Jair's in, all in and everything. So it's like, I mean, other than his high price tag, like, why would you, if he doesn't have an issue with the team, if he's not, a cancer in the locker room or anything like that, I don't see why you move on from him, after this season. I say you stick with him for 1 more year.
He had a post a cryptic post. He put something like, "Been great 6 years. Thank you, the fans. Thank you, Packers." But he kind of had one of those thank you posts up there.
Oh, good Lord!
So that got speculation going on. Is it done? Is it not done? It could have been a guy just saying thank you while he's moving out of town for the off. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
So, but so that's I saw that. And that's what I got some questions on that one today too, a little bit, but not sure to expect. Like I said, hopefully Jair's part of the plan going forward. Hopefully Eric Stokes can get healthy and we can get that first round value we took there, but we'll see what we get. No, I mean, so all in all, I think we kind of covered pretty well here, but looking at it again, quick run by, running back, some O-line help, safety, inside linebacker, and the rest is all depth. I mean, it's a little bit of work on our own free agents who want to see what we can do there, but talking heads have said it. We've said it. There's a lot to be excited about, and that DC is the first pick we're going to look at. And before we wrap up, is there a name you want the Packers to go after for the DC job?
Hold on 1 second here. One of the names I heard, but I don't know, maybe you've heard, because I put a post on Facebook today asking, Packer fans what they thought. And one of the guys, I can't remember who it was, so I apologize for not remembering the name, had thrown out the name, had thrown out Vrabel's name. And then somebody else commented that I don't think he and LaFleur get along or something like that. Do you know anything about that? That they wouldn't.
Nothing about that.
I don't feel like Matt LaFleur doesn't get along with anybody. I mean, I feel like he's the guy that everybody gets along with. But if that's, first of all, I feel like Vrabel is going to be a head coach somewhere. I don't see him going back to a defensive coordinator. I would love to see Belichick, just go, you know what? I don't feel like head coaching anymore. I just want to focus on defense and then get his butt here. But that's not going to happen either. I think, Jim Leonard's an obvious choice. I heard somebody mention like bringing Al Harris from Dallas, but I don't really know if he's necessarily ready to be a defensive coordinator. So I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Who do you have in mind?
So Vic Fangio got fired by the Dolphins today. That's on my list. I'm a little Bears heavy, so bear with me here. But Ron Rivera is another guy I'm looking at. I wouldn't mind seeing him get a look at least.
Yep.
And that I'm gonna botch his name here, but Evero, the guy that was in Carolina, we looked at him last time too. I wouldn't mind giving him another look and kind of seeing. The last one is kind of that argument I've seen float out there a little bit is Wink Martindale has been rumored also as being a candidate for the job.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't really want Wink, but I can see it being a interesting short-term fill for see what happens. Yeah, if I had my druthers right now, if we're going to go with an old name, Wade Phillips is another name I've heard thrown over, but I think he's kind of in that spring football head coaching bit now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I personally think that I would like to see us go after Fangio or Rivera. I think those are two guys that I respect the heck out of Ron Rivera as a coach.
Yeah. So do I.
So I think that he'd be a good influence, especially from a coordinator's position. And I would love to see what we could do with a guy like that in our locker room. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm leaning. If there's another one that's out there, maybe there's a college name I'm not thinking of right now, but I think those would be a good place to start.
All right. Yeah. No, I like any of those. I do like Ron Rivera. I mean, if he's willing to, again, some of these guys, you wonder, I mean, they all have egos. So it's like, do you think he's still holding out for another head coaching job somewhere else? Or sometimes they just go, maybe I just want to go back to focusing on either, defense or offense, whatever their specialty is, that kind of thing. So
Rivera is rumored as a candidate for the Eagles DC job is why I bring him up. Actually.
Okay.
So that's kind of the spot where it seems like that's the leaning it's going there, but you never know, right? So we'll see what kind of comes of everything. But yeah, Jim Leonard would be the homer pick, right? Bring some guy here and
which again, and the only reason I think that could happen is because they've actually talked to him before, so it's like, it's something where they've shown interest in the past, and maybe he's doesn't feel like staying in Illinois because I think that's where he is right now. So, yeah, but it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully they make a decision soon. I mean, I would imagine they want to make it before the draft. Obviously,
you'd have to,
Yeah. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how long it takes and who they look at. But it's, it's going to be the change needed to be made. And I know a lot of people are saying, hey, grass isn't always greener. It's like, yeah, you're right. But we've seen this grass for the last 3 seasons and it's definitely, a nice brown color. So, we gotta, to me, I don't know how you could get much worse. And I know some teams that have worse defenses, there aren't many that are worse than us, but some of them might look at it and be like, hey, you had a good last 5 games of the year. Well, yes and no. I mean, we played 2 offenses in the the Bears and the Vikings. Vikings threw the quarterback out there that they just wanted to say, we just want to see how he does, so it's like, all right, that doesn't really count. I don't think we would have won 33-10 had Kirk Cousins been out there. I mean,
no, but we embarrassed Dak. That's legit, right?
Oh, that's true. No, absolutely. But I mean, they say, I mean, the saying is even a broken clock is right twice a day. I mean, it's you're gonna have some good games here and there. So
one more name I'm gonna throw out there I don't think is even really a candidate, but be really fun if we can make it happen. Is Phil Parker, the DC from Iowa. If you can find a way to grab that guy.
Yeah.
If you can go grab that guy somehow.
Yeah.
You got Lucas Van Ness already.
Yep.
Now we've fallen down the boards a little bit for in the draft. Maybe Cooper DeJean becomes that or Gene, how do you say his last one? I'm going to butcher that either way, I guess. But you'll grab that kid. Better known by some as the white cornerback. But you'll get that kid and with Lucas Van Ness and maybe Phil Parker in that defense. And I mean, you might just have something here. Your own that might be those guys. That's what they do, And I think that'd be. I don't think you're going to lure Parker away from Iowa, but that'd be one heck of a story if you could. And it'd be a fun one to tell. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. So.
But anyway, thanks for your time tonight, Aaron. And
yeah.
We'll close it out on a positive note, and just looking forward to a great offseason we're going to have, and one more Go Pack Go for the road, and we'll enjoy ourselves. But also next season, guys, we'll be better about this one, because I definitely dropped the ball on this show, so my apologies.
Well, no, we all did. Stuff comes up, and then obviously we were focused on our Thursday night show. So yeah, I'm hoping even to have, maybe we could do a few of these during the off season, like a draft special or whatever for the pack, and start having them, like you said, a little more regular. Off season, we maybe do one once a month or something like that, just to keep people talking about the pack. And yeah, we can definitely get better next year with shows like this for every single team. But you and I can focus on the Packers here. So
America's real team.
That's right. Anyway. That's right.
All right.
And the real MVP in Jordan Love, not.
That's right. Anyway, same numbers, right? So why not? But
yeah.
Look here, and we'll
all right. See you, bud. Yep. Bye.